Welcome to the monthly Q&A session for the leadership of Rock the Vote. And this is the emphasis that Rock the Vote New Zealand is your party, a members party, and we will be steered by your contributions. We have a number of fundamental principles that guide Rock the Vote, and you can see our policies on the Rock the Vote website. But we'd like to hear from you what bothers you in particular, because some of the principles might be a bit vague or may need further explanation in there. So it's come up that we do put up on our posters that it's about sovereignty. We want to reclaim sovereignty for New Zealand. And that's not a concept that a lot of people understand, particularly as they don't really understand that the sovereignty has been, shall we say, stolen or diminished by the influence of international organizations such as the United Nations and the World Health Organization, to name but two. But there's more sort of down-to-earth grassroots policies that we need to clarify, I think, because that might be what people are really interested in. So one of my recent posts on Substack was the quote, "I'm not into politics," because you'll hear that again and again from people. They're not into politics, or they're not interested in politics. And that what they really mean is they don't like politicians. And happily, we're not really politicians. We're a bunch of amateurs, and we're quite proud of that. We're a grassroots organization, and we've probably got better things to do than chase political dreams. But the events in the last few years meant we can't leave it to the politicians. And people say they're not interested in politics, but don't know why their rates bill is so high. And they're not really interested in politics, but they don't know why petrol is so expensive, or why all these speed bumps have appeared, or now they want to implement a congestion charging. And they're not making that connection between a political party or political action and what actually affects them day by day. And often they'll feel helpless. So one of the things we could develop during these sessions is more clarification on our policies. We need to start doing probably policy press releases one by one, a little bit at a time, and what we would do if we have the power, rather than just complaining about how horrible politicians are and how wasteful they are and what a terrible job they're doing. Is, well, what would we do if we could in there? But I want to hear from Damon, because you had a session yesterday, and if you had a session today with Parliament.
Yeah. So I'm running for the Franklin local board, so I'm doing a lot of campaigning in Waiuku. Yesterday I did a meet the candidates with the Waiuku people. They're really cool. They're a lot more awake down there than in the city. So down in Waiuku, most of them are farmers, just rural lifestyle people. They're not really interested in all of the climate change crap and all of that. They are interested in flood resilience and actual things that are happening, I'm not this climate hysteria that's kind of made up and all fantasy. The best example I have is for the meet the candidates in town, we've gone to the ones in Waitemata. I'm supporting CNR. Their first question or first questions always talk about climate change. And whenever the City Vision people talk, they always say that City Vision is, they always say that climate change is the most important thing to City Vision, and they see it as the biggest issue. Whereas down in Waiuku, it's not even worth a mention. Down there, it's all about roads. It's all about things actually affecting people, rates, of course. And yeah, just a great bunch of people down there. And then today, I did an oral submission for that's New Zealand First's debanking bill, in which we spoke in full support of that. We believe that the right to a bank account should be a right. We don't believe in debanking people based on political belief, based on environmental concerns. There's some people saying that banks should debank companies that aren't net zero, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, my submission was mostly on just how it should be right, and also there was a part about cryptocurrency and the fact that people who operate in the cryptocurrency industry often have their transactions blocked. They often have their bank accounts classified as high risk, and there's even some that just get debanked because the banks don't like cryptocurrency. There's a chilling effect to basically stop people from going into crypto, and that's pretty much what I talked about, and we spoke in full support of the bill, which will make it so that you can't be debanked based on political belief, based on environmental belief, and based on the industry you work in.
Okay. Okay. Did you get any questions at yesterday's meeting?
Yeah. The questions. So how it went yesterday was we did the 3-minute introduction. Then the questions were kind of put into a raffle. So I got the one that was about online voting and whether we should have online voting. I'm not sure if that was reported or not, but it's the answer was to do with young voter participation and the fact that most young people don't even know what the postal system is. I think I was in favor of booth voting. I think the thing about online voting is obviously that it can be prone to things happening to with it, voter fraud. I know we have the Real Me thing already, but I just stated that we were open to it because obviously with online voting, that'll be part and parcel with digital ID. I mean, digital ID is already going in the UK. It's already been enforced. We've had a digital ID here for a while already. It's called Real Me, but it's just never been used for anything outside of applying for like benefits or IRD or anything like that. I imagine if the government here wanted to extend the digital ID system, they would probably use some variation of that.
It was interesting, I thought, at that meeting, Damon, that the issue about capped rates was seemed to be important to everybody, and everybody jumped in and said, oh yeah, capped rates is a very good idea. And so it was interesting that that idea that you have talked about, where in fact the cart's before the horse if we're just simply jumping in and capping rates, because if they're going to carry on spending money willy-nilly and the rates are capped, then that is going to tempt them into doing even more borrowing, or even more borrowing to address the debt that they've already got themselves into, like the interest, for instance. And so I think it's a very, very good idea to be talking about this, that actually council spending is the thing that needs to be curtailed first, and then sure, capped rates after that, but not capped rates first. And it's not something that obviously people have thought about at all. It's just one of those catchphrases that sounds like it should be a good thing, but actually if you look deeper at the underlying results of capping rates, sure enough, there's a capacity for that to be a problem.
I want my rates to be lowered, but I don't want to give the government more power. Put it that way. So you want to be tough on rates and tough on the causes of rates, basically. And the only way they seem to do is do more spending and more taxing. So yes, it would be nice if there was a mechanism to control the rates, but I don't think the central government should be that mechanism.
No.
But then they need to be held accountable. This is why don't you make it a referendum that ratepayers have to approve a budget for the council. And we've already seen that the mayor is on a salary of over $306,000. And Auckland Council is the biggest employer in Auckland. And nationally, the biggest employer in the country is the New Zealand government. So I think we've got too much government, not too little. But the trouble is we're dealing with people who think the answer to any problem is to have more government.
It sounds just like Greece.
Greece, yeah.
But what you said a little while ago, Andrew, was that maybe there should be a referendum about how much rate we are charged. But we do have that. And we had the Have Your Say, for instance, in Auckland, where people were asked, do you want us to spend more and you get more? Do you want to spend the same and we get the same, or do you want to spend less and we get less? And the vast majority of voters said we want to spend more and get more. So actually, it's not true. Everybody thinks it's not actual money. It's like happening somewhere in fairyland. Yeah, spend the money like off the money tree. They don't realize actually that's you that is going to be providing that money for whatever it is that you think you want.
Yeah, but quite often the people voting for more money are not the people paying for it. So it wasn't a questionnaire given only to ratepayers. It was anybody could reply to that.
Yeah.
And quite suspiciously, there was no detailed accounts. It wasn't how much should we pay. It was, should we pay more or less? Should we spend more or less? There was no big figures in it. No specific, there was no lines in accounts. There was no, we want this line, we want to spend this much on communities and so on. And that questionnaire was so vague that, yeah, of course you want your local playground to be kept in good condition, etc. But that comes under the category of community engagement, which means that they'll also pay for all sorts of things. Cultural investments.
They used it though to justify, ramming home all of the big spending. Some people have got a different way that they are performing their service, and they're doing what they can in their corner. And I'm not saying that they should be doing what we say they should be doing. But it is interesting that the more I talk to people, I say, who do you think you'll vote for? And they say, oh, I've got no idea, and they don't have any idea about what are the issues in their board or their area, or who the personalities are and everything. And this is what's happened. We have become quite separated from this whole world that actually has such a say in our lives. It's amazing that we just let that bowl along with its own goals, and we've got no control over it, it seems, because when we vote, we've got no idea what we're voting for. And so, I'm not surprised people aren't passionate about who should win and who shouldn't win, because they don't actually know the issues in the first place. And like in Waitemata, we are very passionate because we have been seeing our city being ruined, and we are desperate for that group that have ruined the city to not get in yet again. We really, really hope that we can oust them, or oust their dominance on the committee anyway,
And one of the questions is, how do we get young people involved in politics, or at least local politics? They're really just not interested because it doesn't affect them, because they don't have children. They don't have children going to school.
They're not paying rates.
They're not paying rates. They don't have the buy-in to the local community. So the people who are interested in local politics are the people paying the rates, and the people who are living there and have lived there for a long time and would like to keep the local area in good condition for not just their children, but their grandchildren as well. The answer came back from many of them was, well, you need to tell stories, which is all very well, but what story do you tell them? See,
Now,
that's what
when,
young people are interested in.
yeah,
You know, that they won't come to a council meeting, they won't come to a hustings for national or local politics, but they'll take to the streets to campaign about a war that's going on thousands of miles away.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's all that Chloe Spaulding seems to be interested in.
Yeah.
I think we are all tired of war, is the problem. But of course, you know, war is a follow the money thing, isn't it? It's actually something that really we don't have too much control over, it seems, no matter how tired we are of it. And how horrified we are.
Yeah, because we don't know it. I mean, if throughout history, most people were quite isolated from war. The only people who knew war, the ones who were actually fighting it. So it's only in the late 20th century and onwards that people actually got a sight of war. When I was a child, we grew up watching the Vietnam War broadcast live on television, and I believe that was the first war to be broadcast live on television, and consequently the last war to be broadcast live on television as it went, because they wanted to control what was actually going on. It was, too horrific for general audiences.
And was the flooding situation in Kumeu an issue that they talked about, Andrew?
Briefly, yeah, they're going to move Kumeu, which is going to be interesting. Not quite sure where they're going to move it to. But they decided rather than actually spending money on flood protection for the town of Kumeu, that'd be far too complicated and expensive.
And logical.
Well, exactly the logical thing to do, wouldn't it? Actually do some flood prevention work, mitigation schemes. But they decided pretty much to abandon the centre of Kumeu and relocate. So what that means is all the properties in the centre of Kumeu are now in the blue zone. New Zealand has a national map of where the flood areas are. And so the centre of Kumeu is in that flood prone area, which means the value of those properties are going to go down and your insurance is going to go up as well.
If you can get it.
If you can get it, yeah.
What about where you live then, Huapai?
Huapai is a bit higher, and I'm a bit higher. So yes, I checked that. So we're just out.
Did you check that before you bought?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Every property you can look at all the hazards and what they've claimed as well. So you see if you can if you're buying a soggy house. So it kind of makes you aware.
On the LIM report.
Wait, it's not. It will show up in the LIM report, yeah, or it should show up in the LIM report. But you can look at it online. There's a hazard map for all the hazards. So the flooding, the earthquakes, potential tsunamis, and so on, and possibly volcanic activity. So there's a number of websites. So as a primary website, you can go National Hazards Database, basically. Only bits of it will turn up. But there's another for the managed retreat, or shoreline action plan, it's sometimes known as. And Auckland Council have mapped most of the area for Auckland and what land they want to grab. And interestingly enough, all the land they want to grab is all the really expensive stuff by the state. And I can't help but noticing they're thinking in 2 dimensions, because they're actually 100 feet above the sea, but it's on a cliff. And so if you look on plan, it's right next to the sea, but it's no threat for sea level rise.
Was it about a week or so ago, Democracy Action had a working group online, and Catherine and I joined it, and one of their members, who we know, Jessica, had found out that the Local Government Commission, which is different from Local Government New Zealand and different again from the Local Government Funding Agency, but the Local Government Commission has put through an amendment bill to the local government systems. It's called the Local Government Systems improvement amendment bill, which is to do with bringing in a code of conduct,
Improvement.
a code of conduct for all council elected councillor, like it could be a councillor or a board member. So if, say, for example, Damon gets elected, the idea if this passes, that and it's all been done secretly, so they were trying to work out how to expose us. But if it passes, then Damon or whoever else has to sign up to it, and embedded in it is their version of the Treaty of Waitangi, which you have to adhere to. And if you say anything that contrary to it, and for example, the iwi makes a complaint, you can have a court case against you, which you have to fund your defence yourself. The council won't support you. So it's a way of silencing people or getting everyone to follow effectively the communist line, because most people can't afford to defend themselves. And of course, the judiciary is stacked against you. So, I mean, it's not in law yet, but this is what they've proposed, which is awful. And so they're trying to work out how to get, say, the Free Speech Union, the Taxpayers Union, and ACT and so forth onto it. Lee Short, who's the head of Democracy Action, has written a number of times to David Seymour and Winston Peters, who he has previously had good contacts with, but they're not responding to him. So, yeah, it remains to be seen. I mean, the idea would be to expose this, to get this out, to try and put as much pressure on the coalition government to put an end to it.
Was that at a national level they're doing this? Is this something going through Parliament?
Yeah, so it's called the local government. It's an amendment bill for the local government, a code of conduct, but it has to be legislated to enforce on all throughout the whole country, all council elected people to follow this. It doesn't apply, I don't think, necessarily the way I heard it to the bureaucracy necessarily, though it possibly does, but definitely to anyone from any party being elected. You can't have effectively, if you have an opposing view to this and there's a complaint, you'll be in hot water, or you're likely to be in trouble if the local iwi complains that you're not upholding Te Tiriti or whatever it's called.
The treaty.
This sounds like they're imposing co-governance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone will have to be insured so that, you don't get wiped out by that kind of charge.
So Jessica knew so much about it. She's been investigating it. But I actually suggested to her that she spoke really well on the Zoom call. And I think Damon's met her as well. It's Lee's daughter. That I could arrange to go on Simon TV to speak about it, but she's a bit too shy to do that. So I followed it up with a phone call to Lee and said, listen, I think Jessica's got nothing to worry about. She speaks really well. It's a good avenue to get it out. And he said, leave it with him. He'll speak to her and come back to me. I haven't heard anything back yet, though.
No, I mean, they've already imposed it on estate agents. They're imposing it on the law students and law society. And they're kind of doing it with engineering. Engineering New Zealand is very much into the Maori stuff. And not that there are many Maori engineers, but they give the impression, they try to give the impression there's lots of Maori engineers. And similarly, they try to give the impression that there's lots and lots of women engineers. In fact, if you read the magazines, you get the impression that vast majority, the majority of engineers are women. They're not. It's about perception and
virtue signaling.
It is virtue signaling. It's sending a message. We currently are a lobby group. We make presentations and submissions to Parliament, and we will continue doing that. And part of that is one, to learn and get experience of the political system in New Zealand. So we've done several submissions. So every time a law goes through Parliament in New Zealand, they ask for submissions from the people of New Zealand, and anybody can do it. And you can tick the box saying, yes, you'd like to give submission in person or via video conference. And that's what we've done a couple of times for RTVNZ on a couple of submissions. We've done many written submissions and will again continue to do so. What happens to the future of RTVNZ really depends on the members and the membership. So as the membership grows, and if it grows to be bigger than 500, we can register as a political party and we can stand in our own right and put candidates up for the national election. Now, yes, we're a tiny party, but don't forget all these parties start as tiny. And you can take your inspiration from David Seymour, whether you like him or not. He was a one-man band for many years, and eventually he's become Deputy Prime Minister from humble beginnings. So you've got to realise that anybody who gets into politics has got to be in it for the long game. You're not going to achieve overnight success. You've got to have 2 or 3 election cycles to build up your brand and build up your public recognition. And until you do, you're just going to be on the periphery. But getting involved in local politics also helps as well. It spreads the message, and assisting those who think similar to us. For some of the people on the CNR, in the Waikato local board, have got similar policies to us, and we'd like to support those people as well.
So just leading into that, when I was at the Waiuku yesterday, I spoke to about 3 different people that weren't from the freedom movement. And I mentioned, I was like, I'm from Rock the Vote New Zealand, because I was showed them my hat, and they'd heard of it. But I'm presuming it's because Damon's got Rock the Vote New Zealand, that's who he's standing under. But these people who are not from the freedom movement had heard of Rock the Vote. So you're never quite sure how far your reach goes. Like, the classic case was, you know, I was in the UK last year, and a year ago, having lunch with my sister, and she used to have this partner many years ago, but you know, they split up. And anyway, my sister Joanne said, "Oh, have you been in contact with what was her name, Sharon?" And I said, "No, not at all." She goes, "Well, she's telling me she's following Rock the Vote online." And she said, "You guys are fantastic." You know, and this is all the way from the UK. She goes, her and her new partner agree with everything that Rock the Vote stands for. You know? So you just never know. And I think I can really get why this local body stuff's also important, because I find now, not the real radical part necessarily of the freedom movement, but the slightly more sensible is basically just 6 months or a year ahead of the CNR, because I can see them coming around to seeing what this climate change and anti-car ideology is doing to the city centre. We've known this for a long time. They're just catching up. So, and just another bit to add to that, we were putting up some billboards last week with a friend for Gail, a friend of hers, Jean, was putting up, a Londoner, Cockney, and met him before, great guy. Anyway, we got talking after Gail had gone, and he said, you know, the difference between Rock the Vote and Gail. Gail's fantastic, but she's very confrontational and very bossy and makes lots of enemies. He's been trying to talk to her, saying that you're going about the wrong way. You lose these people, you will never get them back, even if you start speaking kind of, would be normally they're not going to receive you. Whereas Rock the Vote, build alliances and friendships, slowly working away, but people learn to trust us, you know, without creating unnecessary enemies. So I think we're right on track.
Yeah, it's working.
We have an alternative at MMP, which is clearly not working. It depends who you talk to, whether you think it's working or not working. MMP is a form of proportional representation, and in common with all forms of proportional representation, MMP gives minority parties a much bigger voice than they otherwise would have had. One of the things, yes, the electoral system in New Zealand needs reforming. And what they should have done when they introduced MMP was to get rid of the Maori seats. And the Maori seats were introduced when we had a first past the post system. And it made a bit more sense then, so that you would have Maori representation in Parliament. What we've got now is over-representation. There are more Maoris in Parliament as a proportion of the population than as the general population would have. And the latest thing is the person who was elected in Tamaki Makaurau, a Maori parliamentary seat was elected on 6,000 votes. And so not all MPs are equal, and some are getting in on a much lower ticket than others, a little lower vote than others. The first thing I'd do is reduce the size of Parliament. We've got far too many MPs. We've got over 120 MPs for a population of 5 million. You probably need to halve that. The alternative, I'd scrap the Maori seats. My own personal view is what I'd do is double the size of each constituency, but have 2 MPs per constituency, and the first 2 get in. As simple as that. It's a much simpler system, and it's much more representative and a fairer system in there. Yeah, you favour minor party representation, but one of the troubles with proportional representation is actually forming a solid, stable government. And so they always form coalitions. And you end up with not the biggest party becoming the government. And so that's how the Labour Party got in, and that's how Jacinda Ardern became the Prime Minister, because Winston Peters formed a coalition with her because he was out to get what he could, and magically became Deputy Prime Minister from a minority party. It's a question I'm asking. Should you get the cabinet ministers from minority parties? And they're representing only a small proportion of the electorate. And the better thing I would prefer is the government does far less, because the purpose of each MP is actually to represent their constituents to Parliament, not basically sit there running the country and dreaming up of more policies to implement.
But then that's if it's an electorate MP, but then you've got the weaker part, which is the list MPs.
Yeah. That is the weak part. When you've got a constituency MP, you've got that direct relationship between the constituent and the person in Parliament. With the list MP, you don't. And what we've seen in the last year is that, the MP's gone. Instead of having an election, we just pick the next person off the list, which nobody's really voted for. So you get that disconnect, and probably some people not suitable to be in Parliament. I'd scrap the list system.
But I suppose the advantage of it gives our group a chance, whereas if it's first past the post, we wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
But then you get the negative side. You get Benjamin Bussy Boy Doyle in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that I heard Wayne Brown talking about, or was it him? Where actually, for instance, Auckland Council, just as an example of maybe like Parliament, they're not working as a team because each one of them is wanting the best for their own area. So they've all got their own agenda that they're adhering to. Is that actually a good thing for the whole country when you're in charge of running the whole country?
You've got to realise who's actually running country. It's not the MPs. And largely you've got a civil service who's running it, and then you've got the MPs who are kind of steering it and putting their pet projects through. Prime ministers and the leading MPs like some of the big projects. They like to cut ribbons because it makes them look good. And one of the big disadvantages, of course, you get very little long-term planning. So the infrastructure you need for New Zealand will take decades to build. And the life of the Parliament is 3 years. No government is prepared to make that commitment. And that's why your infrastructure is in such a mess. And this is why it should really be taken away from government. And this is why I'm much more in favour of a much smaller government. There's so many things that we need: gas, water, electricity, and fuel. That the government shouldn't have anything to do with. And I'd extend that probably to education and health. Because they throw money at things to get some bright, shiny projects, and then wonder where all the money's gone. And the other thing is, would the City Rail link have been built by the private sector?
I don't know.
Apparently not, because nobody did any analysis of would they get their money back from the big outlay of putting it in.
So let's say you are a government of a particular country, and you need some infrastructure built. You don't have any money, but you've got some friends in a Far East country, shall we say, that has got money and offers you to loan you this money. But then you go, oh, that's great, but we've got no workers to build said infrastructure. And said Far Eastern country also says, well, that's lucky. We've got some workers who can build the thing for you.
Lots of them.
Lots of them, and we'll bring them over to do so. And then the terms and conditions of your loan are that if you don't pay back the loan, we take ownership of the land that infrastructure is on. It's a brilliant scheme. It's so cunning. Yeah, why bother investing when you can? It's debt capitalism in there, and there. So many countries have built their infrastructure over 100 years, but kind of New Zealand never bothered doing it. And it's how far do you think New Zealand should grow? And successive governments have gone, well, we don't really want it to be that big. We don't want the population to be very big. Although you heard the other day that, oh, we're going to build 2 more million homes in Auckland. You go, why? There's hundreds of homes, thousands of homes are empty at the moment. So the intensification, I mean, it makes me laugh talking about intensification, that they say 2-story and 3-story houses are intense, high density housing in New Zealand. And when you compare it to the generous plots of the single-story houses that we currently have, then yeah, that's kind of intense, but it's nothing like the population density you have in other countries. So it's almost a deliberate plan to keep New Zealand small and backwards. And when the Maoris get charged, it'll go even further backwards. So many people will leave and return to the island paradise it once was, obviously.